This is my army. This is the enemy's army. My army is composed of girls that are different from the other girls, and they mean it. The enemy army is an unending, space-faring demon army that is also controlling the undead through this guy, who is this guy, but not to be confused with this guy. So I asked the question, is it possible in Warcraft 3 to fight these unending hordes of enemies using only a few girls and their OnlyFans premium subscribers? Before we hit the madness, we quickly need to go through the rules. To keep it simple, the idea is I can only have one of each unit type. There are ways I can gimp this rule, and they'll be shown later on, but for now, let's get back into the madness. For the first time in this game, the very first mission of the Races campaign is a building mission, but they are not concerned about that because they make it a very easy one. The enemy never attacks you, and you do not even have to destroy the whole base, you just have to snipe down their hero. So my starting army of this run was Tyrande, Chandris, a Night Elf Archer, and a Night Elf Archer that is from Timu and legally distinct. And that would be most of my army, if not for the one quest that gave me 2 furball troops to work with. After doing some miscellaneous garbage on the map, I assaulted the enemy base. I created 2 Moonwell paths and used an uprooted tree end to act as a distraction on the top, while I used my main army to draw the attention of the enemy hero into a trap I made, where I would trap him in where I could fight him on a fair 5v1 fight. The second mission, the Daughters of the Moon, is a no-build mission that starts out fairly similar to a regular playthrough. That is, until you get to the point where you are given a large amount of units to work with, but I disposed of every single one of them that was a duplicate. Close to the end of the mission is an undead base, and luckily for me, its high-end troops and towers do not respawn, allowing me to slowly but surely destroy the base for good. On the third mission, Tyrande has gone to find her primary Discord moderator, Awakening of Stormrage. However, to get to him, she has to go through the unmoderated Discord chat known as the Orc chat, which contains the big green orcs and the internet trolls. A big issue for this mission is a timer that is ticking down at the top right of the screen. The undead are chopping down trees, and if they chop them all down, they will be able to enter the burrow where Malfurion is sleeping, which would result in him dying. So we have to get there before they do. But due to my small army size, even after the powerful additions of the Huntresses, the Dryads, and the Ballista, it is still not enough forces to take out the Orc base in a fair manner, so that means we are going to have to cheese. On my first attempt, I tried to get several wisps to run through the base so that I could build a Tree of Life by the 3 bosses I have to take out, and by doing so, I could use an item from the Goblin shop which will teleport my whole army over to the Tree of Life and allow them to take out the bosses. Sadly, these bosses have a very long attack range and they are really aggressive, so any building I tried to build for the most part was pretty unsuccessful and there was not enough space to build a Tree of Life. So I had to reverse my strategy around. I sent Tyrande to aggravate all 3 of the bosses, because by doing so, they will summon their Owlkin companions, very potent fighters, who will run straight towards my base. By using a fairly large tree line and my army units that I can recruit, I can sufficiently deal with all of the waves that come for me, after that leaving the bosses more vulnerable. So I sent Tyrande and the army over, as well as a few wisps. Sadly, most of the army died except Tyrande, but I was able to get 3 wisps through, and from them I built 2 ancient protectors and an ancient of war, which allowed me to recruit more troops, which then enabled me to sufficiently take down all of the bosses in that area. Chapter 4, the Druids Arise, is another build mission, and it has the primary goal to teach you about the aspect of the Night Elves that makes their buildings unique. Their ability to move around. So on this map, there are 3 bases on cliffs that will send aerial waves to attack one another, and sometimes they will come around and attack us instead. Overall, none of these waves are truly threatening and I won't be speaking much about them throughout the run. One of the first primary objectives we have to get through is a human base. That base has a powerful paladin defender, as well as a few towers which could be a hassle. Luckily the ballista fire can slowly take down the towers, meanwhile a tree line and my army is sufficient to take down the hero and the altar that keeps respawning him. After the hero falls, the rest of the base falls quickly afterwards. After the human base comes the haunted forest. It is quite an interesting aspect because it can serve as an infinite gold generator if you are really cash strapped. Something you do not really need to do for this run, even when you're gimping yourself for the challenge run. But it is good info to know nevertheless. So what will happen in that forest is as follows. Mobs will constantly keep respawning again and again, which makes it quite a painful place to get your whole army through. So what I did instead was that I took both the heroes through to the end where the Revenant resides. I was able to pull sections of the army that was protecting her away and slowly whittled them down. And then when it was only him left, I ganged up on him and showed him not to mess with the Night Elves. Now for the satyrs, who really and truly ruined my day. Sadly, you cannot ignore them and run your heroes to the final objective, and if you attack one of them, their whole army gets offended and marches right up to your door, and the respawn rate was really funky on this group. I hated how I overcame them the first time, by building a ridiculous amount of towers to win. On my second go through, I used a more reasonable amount of towers. It was a bit more in line with the spirit of the challenge. So I used that, and I used a few of the ancients to march forwards to attack and absorb blows. But due to their massive size, they were struggling to walk past one another, and I feel that I could have probably done more with just one of them compared to all three out on the field. But I was able to whittle the satyrs down and clear through the mission properly this time. Brothers in Blood is yet another no-build mission. As with most no-build missions, having a fraction of your troops greatly slows down what you're trying to achieve, but it is normally doable. So instead of running through the whole thing, let me just go over the more fun aspects. At one point there's a giant boss, and with that boss I created an invisible wall out of Night Elf archers, and he cannot get to us because if he can't see us, he can't smack us. And that means we are basically immune and can just take down this big scary boss without really caring about anything. On Malfurion's end, there's a section where you have to get through without killing any of the bears. It is pretty easy to do with just Malfurion, as anyone that is a risk you just root them and you carry on with life. The Destiny of Flame and Sorrow is another freeform style mission, where your primary objective is to get to the end, where you can turn Illidan into a demon, and by doing so you gain the power up that will enable you to defeat the Dreadlord. By getting there you can tackle things in any order. Logically speaking, in a normal playthrough, you should deal with the two satyr bases before you bother with the demons. However, due to my fear of the satyrs from the previous mission, I opted not to go for them directly, and I thought I would rather tackle them once I have the power up to Illidan Stormrage. A good chunk of this mission, all I did was go around the map, defeating enemies and getting the powerful items which allowed Illidan to become a very potent attack monster. Once I had got enough items to make Illidan a beast, I sent him to assault the first demon fortification. Slowly but surely I got rid of the defenders, but oftentimes during the attack I would have to cycle back most of the army to defend the base again from the other various attack waves that would come in. Eventually I got to a point where I got behind the altar, and a Foalhound, a creature who has been the bane of my existence in this level due to his constant mana draining capabilities, blocked the actual scary demons so they could not hit Illidan, allowing me to deal with the summoning building without having to worry about too much damage intake on him. Once I had upgraded Illidan and got chaos damage on him, I was able to get through the two satyr bases really easily, and by getting rid of those bases, I reduced the general pressure on myself. That was until the top right demon base started sending really formidable attack waves at me. Luckily, the fancy formation I had designed with trees and moonwells did stop a lot of it, but it still required the army to really do sufficient damage and to just stall them as much as possible. To finish off, I decided for a change. Instead of using trees again, I opted for another Moonwell Rush, and the same strategy more or less applied. Build enough Moonwells so that they can keep restoring your health. That way you've got, in essence, multiple copies of the same unit, and you can also funnel the army into a smaller section, reducing the damage intake on your characters. And it worked out perfectly. Twilight of the Gods was a truly painful chapter that exploited the limitations of the challenge. The mission asked you to hold out against overwhelming amounts of demons for 45 minutes straight. It is a genuine test of endurance. On this mission, I find it very beneficial to rush out and grab all 3 of the gold mines on the map, because the faster you can get the income, the better the result will be. I thought that by using the Furbolg and Troll mercenaries, I would be able to have a fairly large army, which, while true, did not account for the quality of said army, which was not fantastic. Not all mercenaries were as good as the others, as several were cheap fodder style units. I truly was suffering from the sheer volume of different units I could utilize and not being able to create production queues. It was a surprisingly large mental load keeping the armies at high capacity. To mitigate this issue, I created 2 control groups, one for the Night Elf units and another one for the mercenaries. Our main advantage is that the enemy has to get through 3 bases before they can get to the world tree, so keeping your allies' base alive for as long as possible is a requirement. Malfurion's Tranquility ability was used early and often to keep as many troops as possible alive. Tyranda's Starfall ultimate is on a cooldown 3 times longer than Malfurion's Tranquility, so I had to time it well to clear out big threats. Thrall's base was the easiest of the 3 to defend, and the one where I was able to extract the most value from, due to Thrall not murdering my troops with his abilities, and the access that I was given to goblin landmines, which were fantastic at thinning out the enemy attack waves. The attack waves had some nasty characteristics. Mass meat wagon waves could combine with other attack waves to demolish bases. Ghost waves also resulted in my units being stolen from me, greatly reducing the fighting force, and the waves that were sent with the Dreadlord and Pit Fiend are base ending. The Dreadlord's ability to summon Infernals was incredibly potent, and it could swing the fight into their favour, and the Pit Fiend that followed afterwards came with a very potent army, which was more than enough most of the time to beat up my battered and bruised army. The holdout at my base was painful. The heavy meat wagon usage turned my incredible tower formation into a poor joke, whereas the tight choke areas limited my army's movement. The combination of poor value units and the lack of production really was biting me badly, and I broke. Again, and again, and again. And on one attempt, I successfully baited and wasted the time of all the demon units by building random spots all over the map. Then, at the end, Archimon wanted to handle things himself, and he chose to ignore everything and run straight to the objective. And it was over, and honestly, so was I. So, I restarted the mission with spite in my heart. I bought a bunch of improvised explosives, I blew up his undead base before it could even fully form, I made a decorative defensive line, and I went to go watch anime. And yes, you can beat the Night Elf campaign with only one of each unit, but at the expense of the campaign beating you. So thank you my friends for watching, please do not forget to like and subscribe. Maybe watch another one of my videos, and on that final note, bye bye.